Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, class 4. Please take out your novel, The Prince and the Pauper. In the previous chapter, chapter number 10, we read about Miles Handon and his younger brother, Hugh Handon. Students, Miles Handon realized that Hugh had taken his rightful place. Hugh had always been a villain, whereas Edward also worried that nobody seemed anxious or worried about him. Edward had a solution. He wrote a letter in Greek, Latin, and English. He gave the letter to Miles Handon to deliver it to Lord Hertford. But students, Miles Handon was so absorbed in his own thoughts that he just kept the letter in his pocket without looking at it. Handon was only thinking about Hugh's wicked plans and also about Lady Edith. He was sure that Lady Edith recognized him. Next, what happened, students? Next, where did Hugh send Miles Handon and Edward Tudor? Yes, very good. In the prison. Right. There, his old servant Andrew came to meet him, and we told Edward the real story, that what had happened in his absence. Next, students, the judge sent Miles Handon in the stocks to punish him. After a terrible day, Miles Handon and Edward Tudor got freedom. They went towards London. Miles Handon wanted to take help from the new king. They arrived on London Bridge. People were happy and excited about it because it was the coronation ceremony of the new king on the next day. Suddenly, a fight started. Unfortunately, Edward Tudor and Miles Handon separated from one another. Let's start chapter number 11. Look at the book, please. Listen attentively. I shall ask about the speaker and listener in the end. And the impostor and the king, Westminster Abbey. Meanwhile, while Edward and Handon were on London Bridge, Tom Canty was in the great palace of Westminster. He was enjoying himself. Being a prince was an exciting adventure. He had almost forgotten about his old life in Fish Street. He had even stopped thinking about his mother and sisters. At night, he often dreamed about them. He hoped they were all right, but he did not want to go home to Fish Street. He was having too much fun. Did he think about Edward? Well, yes, he did, but he did not think that he could do anything. Meanwhile, everyone was making plans for his coronation in Westminster Abbey. Tailors came to the palace with rich cloth and boxes of plates. They were making the young king's clothes for his coronation. Tom had never had new clothes before. Secretly, he did not think he needed any new clothes. The clothes in his cupboard were beautiful enough. But the coronation was keeping an army of tailors, hat makers, shoemakers, and sword makers busy. Next page, class. Look at this, tailor, and this is shoemaker. The one is a sword maker, and the next one is a hat maker, right? Okay, look at the book, please. Page number 60. They were making new clothes for all the lords and ladies in the palace. Tom stood patiently while they cut and pinned and tried things on him, but he often wished he could go out and play football. The night before his coronation, Tom was asleep in the palace, while Edward, the true king, was standing outside Westminster Abbey. Lamps shone everywhere, and the square in front of the abbey was as bright as day. A crowd of people stood there. They were watching some workmen who were getting this great church ready for the coronation. They were also waiting for the lords and ladies to arrive early in the morning. Edward was waiting too. He was waiting for a chance to enter the abbey quietly. At last, a cart arrived. It was full of wooden seats. Workmen started carrying the seats into the great building. Edward picked up a seat and carried it into the abbey. Yes, class 4. What had happened then? Um, while Edward had been struggling for his life outside the palace, Tom was enjoying this royal life. He had almost forgotten about his mother, sister, and also about Fish Street. Students, Tom didn't forget about Edward Tudor, but he was helpless. He couldn't do anything for Edward. Everyone was planning for the coronation ceremony in Westminster Abbey. There was an army of tailors, shoemakers, hat maker, and sword maker. They were preparing not only for the king, but also for the lord and ladies in the palace. Tom was happy, but he often wished to go out and play football. While Tom was sleeping in the palace, Edward Tudor, the real king, was standing outside the palace. He was watching the workers who were preparing for the coronation ceremony. Actually, Edward was also waiting for the chance to enter in the palace, and he found it. A cart arrived, loaded with wooden chairs for the guests. As soon as the workers started carrying the seats in the palace, Edward quickly picked up a chair and entered in the Westminster Abbey. Yes, class. Look at the page again. Here comes the king. The sun rose. It was a bright, clear day. Lords and ladies began to arrive at Westminster Abbey. Their rich jewels shone like stars. They took their seats in the abbey while beautiful music played. Outside, the crowd watched and waited for the young king to arrive. There was plenty to watch. First came the soldiers with their bright, sharp swords. Next, a group of pretty little girls danced along. Each carried a basket of flowers and they wore flowers in their hair. They threw flowers to the crowd. Then, "Here comes the king," called a voice. A boy appeared. He was riding a beautiful white horse. His clothes were white and gold and covered with jewels which shone like stars. He wore a gold chain round his neck and a small gold crown on his head. Next page, class. Look at these girls, dancing girls, lamps brightly. Bright lamps, yes, class. Next page, page number 61. The crowd cheered and waved. "Long live King Edward," they shouted. The boy waved to them. The little girls threw flowers at his feet. He smiled and bowed. Tom Canty was enjoying himself. "I wish my friends in Fish Street could see me," thought Tom. What would they think? Then suddenly he recognized a face in the crowd. It was a woman, and she was staring up at him with tears in her eyes. He reached up past his horse's shoulder and tried to seize his hand. "My child!" she cried. "My little Tom!" "Woman," said Tom, "I do not know you. Guards, take her away." "Poor things! Poor thing, she is mad. But be gentle with her." A soldier pulled Mrs. Canty away from Tom. Tom's eyes filled with tears, and the soldiers led his mother away. Tom was feeling most terribly ashamed of himself. At last, Tom Canty arrived at the abbey. He marched across a beautiful red and gold carpet. Servants opened the great wooden doors. Proudly, Tom walked up the steps. He made his way to the back of the abbey. where the priests and ministers were waiting. The music became louder. It filled the great church with a noise like thunder. Tom knelt down. The crown was lifted above his head. The music stopped, and there was complete silence. Yes, class, what had happened now? Yes, class 4. Uh, the next morning was an important day. While Tom woke up, all the London was buzzing with excitement. Yes, class. It was their tradition. The arrival of noblemen, lords, and ladies had started. Their rich jewels were shining like stars, marching soldiers, dancing little girls with flower baskets. Then Tom appeared. He was riding on a white horse. It was the day Tom Canty could be crowned. Yes, class, would be crowned. Everything you can imagine. People were just crazy excited to celebrate their new king. Tom was having a great time. All was going well until Tom's mother recognized him. She rushed out of the crowd and put her arms around him. But Tom denied ever knowing her. As soon as he said that he didn't recognize that lady, all of the fun that he was having disappeared. He had to pretend not to be depressed. It was still coronation day, students. It was the moment we have all been waiting for. The bishop was just about to place the crown on Tom Canty's head when Edward appeared and yelled that he is the true king. The crown lifted above Tom's head. Yes, class, let's see what happened next. Take care. Allah Hafiz.